Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to Black Rose Wars. This is the original version, so point one. And I'm only mentioning that because there's a revised edition coming out, or that might be out by the time you watch this video. So I'll have different stuff, and when that eventually releases, I'll try and add a link to this at the bottom so you can see a comparison to that and some of that. Um, Otherwise, yeah, this is the original Black Rose Wars. There's also Rebirth, which is a completely separate game. So there's technically three versions of the game. Then there's also some duels games as well. Rebirth is, they re-implemented the rules. They kind of updated some stuff, so it kind of became a second edition of the game, except they have all new content. So this is the original one. Revised will be just some new stuff here. So we're going to go through this. It's going to be bunch of videos. We're going to go through a couple with the core box. Video one here, we're going to kind of just go through what's in the box. I'm going to do a brief overlook at the rules. I'm not going to dive too deep into them. Just the base idea of what you're trying to do. Because if you go watch, I have a better video on how to play the game for Black Rose Wars Rebirth, which the gameplay element is mostly the same. So I will kind of point out a little bit of differences here and there. If I need, like, kind of just the base differences. And then video 2 will go over a bunch of the hero characters and some of the other content, and then we'll go over some of the enemies in like a third video. Hopefully I'll be able to do it in 3. I might go longer. I usually lie about how many videos there's going to be. But then there's some expansions we have to go through. There's a Chrono, there's Inferno, plus there's the SATOR box, which is the Kickstarter, which is going to be about 6 or 7 videos long. Because there's a lot of different content in there as well. So here's the big box, just the Black Rose Wars. So, to start off, before we even hop in too much farther, two other quick statements to make for these videos is, one, at the end of doing all this, I will do kind of more of a comparison video between this and Rebirth. So if people are interested, hey, if I should pick up one, or if I own one, should I pick up the other? And 2 is, in the SATOR Kickstarter box, they actually have a reprint of every single card that's in this core set. There were some mistakes made during the processing, like maybe some minor errors, or maybe they fixed some things. I'm going to go through only what is in the actual core box. If you decide to pick this up to play it, you can see what's exactly in there. I will do a separate video when I do the SATOR box that compares all the cards side by side, so you can see what the differences are, if there are any, to know if it's worth picking up. They did also have a special kit on their website, which is the Ludus Magus Studios, where you can just pick up the updated components. So I'll do that video again. So just for anyone that's like, wait, isn't there reprints in that box? Or if you know all about this, I'm only going to show what's actually physically in this box. So that way, if you decide you'd like to purchase this, you're buying this by itself, and you're not expected to go buy something else to get something different. Do I think any of this stuff makes the game broken? I don't believe so. I believe it's just they may have had like some spelling or grammar errors, or they may have tweaked a couple of things here or there. But we'll look into that more in that video. Alright, so what's the game? That is the first big question. So now we're 4 minutes into the video. Black Rose Wars, each player embodies one of the powerful mages of the Black Rose Order, so you can become the new Grand Master by acquiring power of the Black Rose artifact. When the games begin, the mages are in their meditation room or cells, the Black Rose Lodge. They must use their powers to battle through the lodge and appease the sentient Black Rose artifact itself to gain mastery over it. Each mage has a grimoire of spells from 6 different schools of magic. You'll need to add spells to their collection to have any hopes of crushing their opponent. At the end of the battle, the mage that accumulated the most power will be crowned Black Rose Order's worthy successor and the master of the Black Rose Order. So what this is a card-based combat game. Let's see if I can find like a picture of the full play field here. So this is kind of like the play field is going to look like. It has all these hexagonal spaces on the board, which are all the different rooms. You're going to move and there's some different layouts for multiple players. If you have 2, 3, or 4 players. Yeah, so what you're doing is you're going to be moving your mages around the board, casting spells, but during each turn you're also going to get some more. Each person starts off with a different set of 6 spells, and then throughout the game, you're going to be able to pick up spells from all the other different 6 schools. So eventually, you might get some spells other players have, or you might stick with your own groups. So you all have very unique decks to play against. All the mages themselves in the core box are the exact same, or pretty much the exact same stat-wise. So there's nothing like separates one from the other. It's the spells that make a difference. The other big thing you're doing in the game is you have to deal with trying to solve quests. You're going to summon evocations as well as casting spells that might heal or damage or move you. You are also going to summon evocations, which are other creatures to help you fight, which is really fun. And then you're going to have events and things that you are also playing against. So that's the other big thing. There's event cards that'll pop up, which might affect what is going on. So like this one says, each time you activate a room, you earn a point. Yes, that's the big basis of the game. So let's just kind of do a quick look at the box and the components before we jump into the rule book. So in the big box here, it's a pretty big size box. We're going to have several trays. In our first tray here, I'm going to zoom the camera down. And so normally I don't always have all my tokens punched out, but since this is an older game, I bought it second hand, so everything's already punched out. But we have, if I pop this off, we have our 4 mages in the tan color. We have tokens that were for each different character, kind of separated out. There should be some square tokens here that are just kind of up in these spots because I didn't feel like popping them all the way out. And then we have colors for each one, as well as these little rose pins. So this is one thing that did change in Rebirth is they got rid of these and they started using base rings instead. So we'll kind of look at that a little bit later. And then we have some other little tokens in here, an extra one there. Some other different character tokens, which we'll look at those a little bit more in depth. And then we have the Black Rose room itself. So another thing we're going to notice on here, just for rules-wise, is we have all these cubes, and our rooms are going to have these little spots here. So this is another part of the rules of the game, is to earn points, one way to do it is by casting spells and defeating other players, completing quests, sometimes during events, but another way is to try and destroy rooms in the lodge. So if we place enough cubes on this board, by placing certain spells, we cause instability. And if you destroy the room, then it flips over to the other side and it's destroyed. So that's kind of fun too. And then we were talking about activating rooms when I was reading through the book. Rooms can have special abilities, so you can activate and they can do special things as well. So if we grab tray number 2, these are going to be all the different evocations you are fighting against, or summoning to fight for you, rather. I guess you're fighting against them if somebody else owns them. So they're just various types of monsters or creatures. Like these ones are little altars that you summon down that kind of set in one spot and do stuff. Some of them correspond to a particular mage. Each mage has their own set of personal spells that nobody else has access to. Some of them are part of each different school. So depending on what school you go for, what mage you have, you're going to pick different stuff. Then we do have some black cubes as well. These are actually to keep track of the Black Rose, their points and stuff, because not only are you competing against each other, you're also competing against the Black Rose. So not only do you have to defeat another player or multiple other players to prove yourself worthy, you have to be able to compete and make sure you're more powerful than the Rose itself. And if we look at the last part of the box, which I'm not going to pull out because it's a bigger tray, is we have some boards. So we have some boards for each character, which will kind of tell us what it is. So like we have our 4 different characters, Rebecca, Nero, Jafar, and Tessa, who each kind of go with their own different, they each have their own different like spell group that they like to work with. They kind of fit in with a theme. But just to keep track of how you place all your spells, all your different tokens and stuff like that. This is again another change from Rebirth. Rebirth went to little kind of tiles with cards. Which I will also note that the SATOR box, the expansion, or the Kickstarter expansion, switches these guys over to that as well, so you have more of a generic board out. But this is how the base game comes, a board for each different character. There's also a 5 and 6 player expansion if you want to pick up more characters. Then here we have some tiles. This is to keep track of points on the board, so you'll keep track as you move your characters around the board. They will go through and activate stuff, and eventually the game will end at 30 points. These moons are for your different event decks. So there are 3 different events. There's the crescent moon, the half moon, and the full moon. So in between here and here, you use the first deck. Once you hit, anyone hits 6, whether it's you, opponent, the Black Rose Room, someone hits it, then you switch to the second deck, which has a little bit more challenging stuff, and then when you hit here, you get to the third one. So you have different things that are going to trigger and play every time. And then this is the board for the events to keep track of them. Deck stacks here, discard pile, and then they pop into these 3 spots to be used. So those are double-sided, so you can put them on either side of the board, so it doesn't matter which direction they are. Then down here we have a couple more bigger evocations. We have a bunch of miniature cards over here, which we'll go through more in a different video, but we have our event cards, which are separated in 3 different piles. And so if we just take a really quick look at one of those, so it's going to tell us, mage the most points is moved to his or her son loses 2 points. So the values are equal. With the most mages, go to their respective starting cell, lose 2 points. This is an instant effect, so it just happens, and some of them will show on there, like, they might land at this spot, and they're active as long as they're in that space. And then we have a set of quests, which also correspond to those times on the chart. So then everything kind of rotates around. It's a neat way to, like, give you a bigger deck of stuff, and we're going to have stuff in here, like, a quest you have to complete is, discard 1 spell from your hand to the library during the study, and then you get a point. So sacrifice something. Or reveal at least 1 fire spell from an air spell. So if you do that, you get 3 points. So just different ways to get some extra points to win throughout the game. Then this little pile here is for all of the evocations. So when you summon them, you get one of these little cards with them, which will have all their stats on there. So for like Bone Knight, we'll have Undead. It'll say it has 2 movement, 4 attack, and 4 health. Yeah, so some of them have possibly little extra abilities and stuff as well. So these just, so you can keep track of each time you have a little guy, you know which card it is, and you can be like, oh, that's what my guy does. So, and it's only a number for each model. So if there's 3 of these, that means there's 3 of these in the game. So if you have 4 players, only 3 can ever be summoned at a time. Yeah, so we'll go over these in the enemy video. Let's scooch these off to the side for a moment. Then we have this big, giant deck here of standard cards. These are our spells. So they're separated into different colors. So we have like a red one, a yellow one. I don't remember what they all are immediately off the top of my head, but there's 6 different ones. So again, each one corresponds to one of the 4 mages in the base game, and then the 5-6 player expansion has mages that kind of like to use the other 2. So if you have all 6 characters, you have one that kind of prefers each different color, but there's nothing that says you have to use it. And then each spell has 2 different sides, so it has an upside and a downside. So when you play the card, you can either use one side or the other, which is really cool. And then it'll tell you what type of ability it is, like some are combat spells, which have the lightning, so they tend to do damage. Some are contingency spells, which tend to kind of set up little traps and stuff. The middle one tells you what type of element it is. So we have like profane, we have water, fire. You know, each different element or different spell has different sets of those. Then the last one tells you who it targets. So this will target any miniature. And if we flip this over, this will target any space on the board. And then it'll tell you what it does. So this one's going to summon one of your evocations, a Malakota, versus the other one says one of your evocations can activate immediately. So this lets you control them, your minions, basically. Well, we can get something like this one. It says inflicts 3 damage to all models in the target room, and no one can activate it. And then, you know, some of them have this little black tile. That's the instability tokens we were talking about. They help flip them rooms over. So it definitely makes every card. There's 3 copies of each card in the deck. So there's a decent amount. So even if like one person starts with 6 of these cards, one person starts with 6 of these, there's still another 6 that aren't even being used by that player. Plus, since there's 3 of each, every player can just either focus on 1 or 2 types. They can spread across all 6 different schools if they want. Some are going to synergize. Just kind of depends on what strategy you're looking to do. So yeah, really fun mechanic in there. And then the last type of spell we have, the last 2 types of spells, is we have Forgotten Spells. These are like super powerful ones. They work the same way, but they're even more powerful. There's only 1 copy of each. But they'll sometimes summon bigger monsters or do like very big devastating effects. But you only get 1 copy, and once it's used, it goes away. And then each mage has their own set of 3 personal spells. So like, Nero here will have Ring of Fire, so only he has access to this. Jafar only has access to hers. Rebecca only has access to hers. So that's the only thing that really makes each character very different, is because they have their own starting thing. But again, they kind of work with what they do. So like Nero has red, so he kind of wants to use the red destruction spells. They kind of fit together. Jafar likes the yellow spells. The colors kind of tie into what they do. So that is fun as well. Alright, then if we look at, we have our spell reference cards. So we have Conspiracy, and this shows the 2 different decks that you can start with. This is one other slight departure from the Rebirth set. Rebirth, every starter grimoire, as they call them, had 6 different spells like this. Some of these actually use some of the same spell twice. There's a slight difference. But we have our spell groups are Conspiracy, Destruction, Divination. We have one spot for Forgotten if you're sorting them out. We have Illusion, Necromancy, Transmutation. So those are our 6 different spell groups. And then we have some reference cards. They kind of just show in case you need to know what the different rooms in the game do. So this is all the different abilities all the different rooms do. 3 for each different color. So that's helpful to have as a reminder as well. Then, the rooms themselves, I might be able to pull them all out. We have a bunch of different rooms. There's 3 for each color set. Each side will have the regular side and destroyed side, and we'll go over these a little bit more in each building. Yeah, some neat artwork on there. We have like Oracle Room, and then it's just not light anymore. The Sanctuary, all the candles are blowing out, everything's cracked. And then they have different amounts at the bottom. So like some have 5, some have 4, some have 6. So they have different amounts of things they're going to do. The other thing that makes the rooms different is the last piece we have to look at are activation abilities. And I just dumped them all out. Yeah, so each room is going to have their own little abilities. So like we have Alchemy Laboratory. Will let you draw 2 cards from your grimoire. The Arena will let you choose a mage and a model and draw some cards. This one lets you summon a Cerebro. So that actually lets you summon some stuff. And then we have different ones that let you do different things in the game. Draw a quest card. Do a damage to someone. Take damage and do damage to someone. Change some rooms around. Some different things there. Again, we have the little thing that'll let us do it. And then if the rooms are destroyed, you can no longer use them anymore. So it's a little extra cool mechanic, because then the rooms can also be laid out in different orders every game. So you don't know exactly what order you're going to be. So you can play, obviously there's no like story or quest to the game. It's just defeat the other player. But since they can be in different orders, you can't necessarily come up with an exact strategy being like, oh, I'm always going to get this room, then this room, then this room. Because they might not even be in the same order. You might not even use every room every time. Plus then, again, the spells are always going to be different. Oh no, I just dumped a bunch of them on the ground. So yeah, very interesting there. Now that we look at the components, we kind of just do a really quick relook over at the rest of the rulebook. So we talked about the power board, keeping track of your power points, which are your points to win the game, and the event board where your events are all going to go. There's also a crown token. So for the most part, the crown token is just referenced on certain cards. It's not necessarily a first player token, just because there's various things you'll pass it around, events, quests, things you'll pass it around throughout the game. But then what it does is, just certain things that might reference, the person holding the crown gets this. We have 4 mage cells, which are basically, they don't do anything in the game. They're just your starting points, or when you die, you respawn and restart. So that's also the thing. It's not an elimination game. You're going to potentially die in the game and be defeated multiple times. And you just respawn back to your cell, and you get to kind of start, just pick up where you left off. We have all our different rooms and tokens. Once the room is activated, it must be flipped to the darker side. It shows room cannot be used until the tokens are activated. So someone can't jump in a room and use the thing over and over and over. So we have some stuff there. Activation tokens. And then the Black Rose Room specifically has its own that used to get the Forgotten spells. That's the only way to get those. We have all our different PowerPoint tokens. So some for the Black Rose Room, 1 for each mage. Our mage sheets, which will keep track of all our different stats on there, where you put your cards, your discard, your quick spells, your evocations at the bottom, some stuff like that. Cubes, action tokens, keeps track of specific actions you can do. So you have your magic actions, like casting spells you can do during your turn. You get 1 spell per turn unless you're doing a quick spell. But you get 2 physical actions, which can be moving and attacking. And these just kind of keep track of those. Some elemental tokens, some trap tokens to keep track of various spells doing different things. You get some trophies. Every time you beat a player, you give them one of your, or they give you one of your trophies. This just helps keep track of other things throughout the game. And then we have our spell schools. If you kind of went over that. Reference cards, forgotten spells, evocation cards. And you have quest cards you're going to be doing. So then the 3 different decks, first moon, second moon, and third moon. This is going to tell you how to complete the quest and how many points it's worth at the bottom. It says there's a symbol at the bottom lower that represents the quest can only be played if there are 4, 5, or 6 players. Just because some of them might be too powerful or too hard to pull off if there's only two or 3 people. Then we have the event cards. So they go through, have the same idea. We have our 4 main characters. They're miniatures. We have our rose pings. We have our different enemies. So we have some skeletons. We have the Alanga Sneaks, the Bone Knights, 5 Divine Altars, 5 Mutant Altars, 3 Cerebros, 3 Andromedas, and 3 Malakotas. So a couple different types there. Then when we set up the rooms, the 2 rooms that always have to be present is the Black Rose Room in the center and the Purple Throne Room. On there, wherever they are, they have to be next to each other. Otherwise, all the rest of the rooms are just connected together. Now, the rooms always are accessible from all 5 sides. Oh, 6 sides, sorry. So there's not I have to take a path this way and a path that way. And then you place your little activation tiles on each one. And again, the board can be set up. You put your cells wherever they are, so you can kind of set them up in different orientations. And then the 2 power boards go on there. Now, there are some missions in the SATOR Kickstarter box that have the board laid out in different orientations. So instead of a giant grid like this, you could potentially lay it out in a line or do a zigzag, which then might make room so you can only enter and exit one direction. So it's also a fun thing because it's completely customizable, so you can move stuff around to make the game more interesting rather than just having it be a free-for-all. Then you just finish setting up all your spell cards, spell decks, all of that fun stuff. Then we kind of went through the PowerPoint and the moon, so once you get to that Burst Moon, then you switch out to the next deck, so when you get to the third one, you switch that, just to keep rotating the game up. So what do we do on our turns? Let's take a quick look at that. So we have the Black Rose phase, the Study phase, Preparation phase, Action phase, Evocation phase, and Cleanup. During the Black Rose phase, this is where events are going to take place. So every event shifts one position to the next. If they're on event 3, they get discarded, which might award the Black Rose points. So they're going to continuously earn points just from event cards. And then the last mage that went is to draw a new event and see what happens on there. Some are instant, might happen immediately. Some might go to a specific spot on the board. And if they go to spot 3 and there's something there, they'll push the spot 3 one off the board. Some players have the first event, have the crown symbol, which is listed as a first player token above the moon phase. Mage draws this event and gains a token, but will become the first player at the beginning of the next turn. So it kind of just rotate around who gets to go first. And then start with first player, each mage that doesn't have at least one quest may draw one quest, but you can only have a certain limit of numbers. You have 2 active quests at a time. Then the big thing is you have the study phase. So during the study phase is where you get new spells to play. Each player starting the first player draws 2 cards from their grimoire, your own specific deck. Then you draw 2 cards from you got 4 cards from the magic school. So again, if you're playing destruction, you could keep drawing destruction, or you could dabble into some of the other ones. You can draw 1 destruction and 3 other different cards if you wanted to. And you keep 2 of them. So at the beginning of your turn, your hand will be 2 cards from your personal deck you've been customizing, and then 2 brand new cards you're going to add to your deck. So it gives you a lot of options on what you want to do on your turns. You potentially have 6 cards to choose from for what you're going to do. And then you have 4 cards, and you'll, with them. It's not necessary to draw all 4 cards from the same school. So you can pick some from different schools, which is really cool. I'm not going to go detail and all that. Preparation phases. Now, you must play a minimum of 2 spells to a maximum of 4. So you don't have to play. You might decide, hey, I'm going to save this for a later turn, or this doesn't really help me this turn. Because once they're on your board, they get discarded. And then you don't get to use them for a while. So place the cards face down in the order of the rotation in which to play them. So if you want the top side, make sure your top's there. Now, sometimes the rules will say have them this way, so you only flip them a direction. As long as you cannot change the orientation when you flip them over, so either flip them left or right this way, and then the top is what you're using, or flip them like this, and you always know the bottom one is the one you're going to use. It's fine as long as you're always doing it the same way. Mage must place one of these spells in their quick slot, and then they can place the rest in spell slot 1, 2, or 3. And then as the turns go around, when you're taking your different actions, you can play quick spell at any time that it's available to be activated. Well, as you have to play spells 1, 2, and 3 in order. So, you might have to kind of have a little bit strategic element on where you place your cards. So it shows her playing her first spell and 2 combat spells, and then a third acid explosion as her quick spell. So she has like a protection spell, and then she has some combat, and there's an extra combat there. So this way she can cast it. She can cast as soon as she has a target within range. So she wants to be able to play this one no matter what. She'll put it in her quick spot. The other ones, and she has to play this one first, and then this one. Protection spells generally make more sense to play early, because then they'll protect you for the next 2 rounds. Versus you play it last, you might only have 1 chance to block something. Then we have the action phase. During the action phase, check the events to see if anything goes on. Each player has 2 physical actions. Allow you to move up to 2 rooms, activate, or inflict up to 2 damage, showing on your player board. Each time a token is used, it must be flipped over. Now, there could potentially be other things in the game that give you extra actions to spend. There could be other spells or evocation abilities through this, or expansions, or other versions of the game that you can mix and match those. So what you have to do on your turn. So each turn you have to do one of the following. Play a physical action. Play 2 physical actions. A physical action and a standard spell. Physical action and a quick spell. Standard spell, quick spell. Or standard spell or a quick spell. So mages continue to play one combination A through F proceeding clockwise. You cannot cast 2 standard spells in one combination. So you can perform any of them. So maybe just the first turn you only want to move, or you just want to attack. Maybe you just want to cast one of your spells. But you only get to do up to 2 of those actions during each turn. And then the next player goes all the way around, comes back to you. If you've used both of your physical actions, you won't get to use them again. So yeah, moving and then attacking on your first turn might be really cool, but then now you have to hope you're in range to use all your spells. But in performing in any order, however, note that each action must be resolved completely in its sequence. Never possible to tie a physical action half. For example, you can't move one step, cast a spell, then finish your movement. A mage may opt to discard an unactivated spell to move one step. They do not get to attack or activate the room. Only move. This action is mandatory if the mage is in their cell and they ran out of physical actions. So yeah, you might have to discard some stuff there. There's just kind of a little brief thing showing how you can do your different spells. That's just a guide kind of showing what each player is doing, so I'm not going to get too much into that. So here's another one I do kind of a little bit more. So this is using their physical action to move 2 spaces, and then decides to resolve the ability to attack a room. So you use that, flips it over, and gets to use that to let you draw a spell. It just gets an extra transmutation spell. During action phases, mages can cast spell to gain power points, split damage to their opponents, and create instability to destroy rooms. Just kind of explain how some of them do it. So none of the mages can pass if they have the ability to play at least one spell or physical action. None of the mages can reveal 2 standard spells in a row. Only 2 spell combinations allowed a standard and a quick one in either order. The activation of the throw room gradually under the first player token, so they can do that if they'd like. When using a physical action, it is not possible to move and attack. It allows you to move or attack, so choose which one. It is not possible to inflict damage on yourself or your evocations when one of your spells would do so. So if you have a thing that says, like, target this room, do 3 damage, you won't hurt yourself or your things you summoned. So kind of spells. We're going to look at, we have combat spells, contingency spells, protection spells, and trap spells. So combat do damage, generally. Contingency is a summon, gain power, move quickly, do basically anything that's not generally direct damage. Protection and spells are a little bit different. So spells, once they're cast, they can be triggered whenever a mage targets the effect, and traps are the same. So protection helps you maybe prevent damage or prevent being targeted. Traps usually might do damage to your opponent or might move them or let you do something special. So you play them, so if you cast it rather than reveal it, you place a protection token on top of it. So if you're playing a protection spell, it's your first one. During your turn, you place a protection token on top. So everyone will know that you have a protection token. They do not know what triggers it, though. It could be attacking you. It could be walking into a certain room. Various things like that. For example, a mage takes damage, or if the mage is being moved by a spell. So once it triggers, anytime after that for the rest of the turn, rest of the round, they can go ahead and trigger. Or they can trigger. Same thing with traps. Some are effect traps, some are room traps. Some say if they do a certain thing to you, this will happen. Some if they enter a specific room. Like this one showing, when it enters a blue room, this one will activate. When it enters a green room, this one will activate. So it penalizes opponents to going to certain areas. However, it says, for as note, any traps or protection will interrupt the action of another player should be resolved entirely before triggering the mage's turn. However, if the mage is defeated by a trap, their activation ends immediately. So if they have, I'm going to do 2 spaces to move. I'm going to move into the blue room and then to a red room, right? They move into the blue room. This will activate, and if it ends up doing enough damage to defeat them, they don't get to keep going, obviously. During cleanup phase, if a protection has not been yet triggered, it should be discarded to the memories, as if it had been played. A trap which is not triggered can be taken back to your hand to play the next turn. So you can pull your traps back as long as someone getting activated. Missed a page there. just kind of just explaining how the traps and stuff work. I'm not going to get into too much there. We have targets for spell. We have mage, you can target yourself. Single targets another miniature on the board. Area targets a specific space. And special, which lets you target pretty much anywhere. Or a specific thing it might tell you. The range of sight for stuff is a straight line. So it does say you have to target a mage. You have to be able to see them. So the range, say for a room a spell is being cast can be taken a number of rooms away. So sometimes they might say, for example, this says 2. It has to be up to 2 rooms away. So you can't just target any room in the game. You have to target up to that number of spaces away. And there's kind of showing how many different spaces away it can be. So yeah, positioning stuff also makes a difference. Then damage and defeat. Each time a mage plays an effect that inflicts damage that takes many damage tokens of their colors inflicted on the damage states. Place those tokens on the adversary's life bar in the evocation total. So what you do is every time you damage someone, or if you put instability down, we'll get to that in a minute, you put your cubes on the board. You have a limited supply, so you have to kind of also manage that. It shouldn't be too terrible, but if you're playing a bigger 4 or 6 player game, you have more things to place cubes on. When a life bar reaches the number of points, they're considered defeated. Same for evocations, can take more than 1 point of damage. Mages defeated return themselves. Count the damage tokens based on the color and award points. So whoever dealt the most damage does 4 points, second place does 2, and everyone else gets 1 point. So even if you get, you probably want to at least try and throw some damage on someone here or there, because you at least get a point. But you can also, if they have 7 health, you could do 4 health to them damage, and then you could just leave them alone and let somebody else finish them off if you like. And you still gain the most points. And you take all your tokens back, and you get, Mage did the final blow takes the trophy, so that's the reason you get that sometime. There's some optional rules, too. It's just kind of just showing how defeat works. So Tessa has 6 tokens on there. So Yellow did, Rebecca did 3 damage. And then Rebecca did 5. Nero or Jafar did 3. And then Tessa came back with the last damage. And since the other 2 only did 3, they only get 1 point. So no one gets the middle amount of 2. Then instability. So some spells are so powerful they generate instability. They have been cast to identify the spell has instability between the 2 effects. The little dot we showed before. Mage casts this ability to take 1 damage to their tokens and put them on there. There are spells that convert instability tokens on another color. When you're converting, choose a specified number of instability tokens in the target room of any color of your choice, replace them with your own. There are damage spells that will do this as well. Yeah, so it just says Rebecca casts a Maelstrom. Reverse sucking effects where the Tessa is located. She places 1 instability in the room, a spell of the Guardian, and then a sucking effect. She has 3 instability tokens in the room where Tessa is. So she puts the instability where she is at. And then she instability in the room that she's at, and then she puts 2 more in that room because of the spell. So it says inflict 3 damage on Miles, and then assign 2 more to that area. Evocations are your summons. When mage summons evocation and take the corresponding card in from the reserve must be placed in one of their evocation slots. Every evocation on the mage slot has shows a set of roses, corresponds to the number of pins to be placed in the model bases. So this is so that if I have my model is number 1, I have 1 pin in this guy. If I have him in spot 2, I put 2 pins in. So you know which card goes to which character. In case you have multiple or your opponents have the same character, you can usually look like, oh, that one's mine because he's the green one, yours is the red one. Or, oh, you damaged 3 damage to this one, I have 2 of them. You did damage to the first one, not the second one. And then the last part of the turns, we have the evocation phase. So players do that basically. The events happen, they trigger, then you draw your cards, you play stuff, then you move around, do all your actions. Then the evocations to go. During there, mages can activate all their evocations in the order they prefer. Each evocation move up to limited time and inflict wounds. Number on there. Evocation damage Inflicts damage to damage tokens of the matching the controller color. If an evocation loses all hit points, it's removed. Yeah, so they just kind of give you extra things to do. Now, there are some spells that let you activate these during your turn as well. We saw that one that said activate your evocation. So it lets you activate your guys outside of order, so that way people can't just be like, oh, as long as I move away from that guy beforehand, I'm fine. Then lastly, you have the cleanup phase. Final phase of the turn, we'll check the rooms that become unstable, reactivate room tokens, and discard your memory spells, your tokens, all that stuff. So, it says each major room spell cards already played and place them in their memory pile, to their discard pile. With the exception of non-trigger traps that come back to the mage's hand. Flip over activation tokens. All room activation tokens must be flipped back to their active side. Check for rooms that become unstable. So once they've reached their full number of slots, when they'll gain a room activation token as a reward that counts at the end of the game. Mages will place the token on the sheet, remove all instability tokens from the room, then flip it to the destroyed side. In the case of the Black Rose room, the points are rewarded. In case of the tie, the tokens are rewarded to the Black Rose room. Nothing happens to major evocations. They just pick them up, set them back down. But you can no longer use their activation effect, and it's impossible to assign instability to that room. So it kind of makes them so they're unusable anymore. And then check if someone's met point 30 or not. So, very cool. So yeah, then just counting points at the end of the game. Resolve any quests you have. Count the quests up who has the most quested some. Whoever has the most trophies or like star points. Points for unstable, and whoever has the crown, and then you add up your points on the board. And then see who has the most to win. So this is kind of an example of that. Oh, I guess you don't actually add up the ones on the board. 3 quests. Yeah. I thought you added those up too. Oh yeah, there you go. Then you add the ones at the end. In game, your other stuff, and then your end game, your ones you total up. Yeah, okay, so that makes more sense. So someone gets way far ahead at the end, they might not solve all the other stuff, and they can still win the game. Yeah, so that's the basis of the game. So like again, if you have Black Rose Wars Rebirth, the rules are almost identical. The one biggest difference, again, I'll go a full comparison video later, but one of the biggest differences is that in this game, you are destroying the rooms. In that game, you are restoring the rooms. So the tiles flip the other direction, but they have the same thing. They upgraded some of the rules and how some of the tokens and stuff work. But they are completely compatible. So you can actually, if you have this game, or eventually if you get the revised version when it comes out, depending on if you want to pick that up or how much everything is, you can mix and match it with any of the other Black Rose Wars games easily. The only other thing I wanted to just do a quick look at is we have this extra little book, which is really neat. It shows off all your basic, gives you a good story of what's going on. But it kind of shows off each spell and kind of gives you a little idea of what each spell card does, for the base game at least. So that's kind of nice. So that way if you just kind of want to get an idea there. Forgotten spells, what each room does, how many instability points it takes, how much it's worth. Then a little bit about each different character, and then kind of mentioning like what their spell does, plus what they like to do. Like Jafar likes to use divination, Tessa likes to use transmutation, Rebecca uses necromancy, and Nero uses destruction. And then some pictures of painted miniatures. So cool. That's what we have for Black Rose Wars. Part 1, come back, check out all the rest of them as we check over the heroes, the villains, the rooms, all the quest cards, event cards, all that fun stuff. Alright, see you guys later. Bye.